Now, here's a trick with round base letters. There is a trick to doing them. I think I heard John Deere speak of looking at fonts, and he could always tell when someone was an experienced type creator or font creator. There is something in round letters that is slightly different. The difference is that they do not have a base or top line presence the same as one of these letters like the N or even the A. The A doesn't have a strong top line presence, but it does have some horizontal aspect to it up here, and the A and the bottom certainly does. The N has quite a bit. An E has a very strong top and bottom line presence, where the round letters do not. You might be tempted to make the round letters the same height using your grid. Make them the same height as the other letters. What you will accomplish by making them the same height is that they will look visually shorter. It's a strange phenomenon, but it's true. If you go ahead and make this S and this O the same exact height as these two grid lines, when you jump back out, they will look shorter than the other letters, even though they are the exact same height. It has to do with the curvature of their top and bottom line. So if you want to create one of these, you have to keep that in mind. You actually can bump them down a little bit past your grid line and making them literally taller than the other letters, but visually they will look the same when you get back away from them. How to create an O? Well, this one for me is a bit of a wing. I will create that using a closed shape. And I know that if I put a round node at each juncture, 6, 12, 3, and 9, I'll end up. Now I'm following the basic shape of this O. And of course, I had it set to fill. I change it to line. I'll change it to satin. I'll change it to manual spacing. I'll change it to 14. And I would have to play this with line width. Now that's a little thick at 0.079. Let's try 0.07. You don't have to get too fussy with the weight of the line. It should look okay. Now you can see automatically that's just a tad taller, top and bottom, than the other letters are. I think I might be inclined to make it a little shorter than that, but not too much. That pretty much approximates what I've created over here. Now, an S is a tricky letter to create and try to get it even. What you'll find a lot of times with letters like S is that the bottom part of the S is taller than the top part. That's just a visual thing. It has to do with subconscious visual balance, making the lower portion larger, therefore visually a bit heavier, and it fits your logical notion of foundation and weight. Weight always being at the bottom. It doesn't allow it to look top heavy. Let's try creating this in an open line. The only problem with that is the ends, if you don't want them to be that way, the ends will be perpendicular to the sides. You may not want the ends of your letters to be that way. Let's give this a shot and see what we end up with. Start off with a square node here. Go right to the top. Round, round, square, square, round, And I'm dropping down a little because this letter's in the wrong place. Round, square, and change it to satin, manual, 14. No, I hit that wrong. 14, and I used 0.07 last time. So that is the same as our O. And it's not great. Let's bump some things around here. This is all done by eye now. I'm doing all of this by eye. That may be a bit of a problem for some people. I happen to have a pretty darn good eye. Now, I see one problem in here. These don't really flow smoothly around through here. There's a gap in here. I've learned there's a little bit right here. I need another node in here. Now see the shape of that change? Watch. Adding that node. Watch the shape, the arch of this change, just by sticking a node in. Not even moving it, just adding one. See it? It changes ever so subtly. There's a flat spot right here in this trace. And when I add that node in, it arcs it. That's almost perfect. Now I'm going to bump that just once. Up. Ah. That did a nice job. Same thing down here. I need another one. Watch this change. Ah. That one's almost perfect. I'm going to give that a bump. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. Why is it starting in the middle? I don't know. I'll move the start to the beginning and at the end. Or I could swap them. Doesn't matter. That's a pretty nice S. It's a pretty fair approximation of what we had. Now, is it wide enough? Arguably, it's not wide enough to fit the rest of the letters. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's not exactly symmetrical. The bottom is much wider than the top. Maybe let's try bringing the top out just a touch more. I probably need to bump it down. I'm watching my proportions, my shape. I'm going to bring this over a little. No, that didn't work. Let's see. That might need to go down just a touch. There. I'm rounding this portion out a little bit. This is all eyeball stuff right now, folks. I'm playing proportions and shapes purely by eye. I'm going to make the top a little bit wider. I'm actually going to bring this guy back in a couple of touches to the left and curl that top a bit more. I'm liking this better right now. What happens if I add one here? It shifted the stitch angles around a little bit, but it didn't really change the shape too much. I'm going to bump these two up just a tad. Remember, I created this just by eye, so I'm tweaking it by eye. I'm trying to get a really smooth, continuous flow all the way around this, so there are no flat spots, no funny edges, anything like that. Now, let's see. I can do a quick survey of how equal these are by just dragging up. Yeah, now see, the S is slightly shorter than the O in that position. And at the top, it looks like it's farther up. It is. So, if I take this S, that's not what I selected, take the S, give it a tap down. It should be roughly at the same height. Let's see. No, it's still far higher than the O. I'm just leveling these off here. It's the same at the base, but the S is taller. Let me duplicate that, and I'll run up a second line just on the tip. Now, I'm going to shorten my S just a tad to even it up with the O. Yeah, it's pretty close. I don't think you notice the difference. So there are an S and an O that are taller than the other letters. I'm not going to bother. The F and the T would be created similar fashion. Now let's just do it real quick here. Won't take any time at all. That's not what I wanted to do. I keep grabbing the back for some reason. When I'm clicking, it's clicking through and catching what's in the background. I'm not really sure why. So there, I've got that. I've got the mast for that. How can I create these little guys real quick? Duplicate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 using the angle key. And I grab the background again. I still don't know why it does that. This is going to underlap, so you can see I'm bringing the left side of it right about to where I want it. I believe that those pieces are far too short. The F and the T should be a bit wider than they are. Okay, so there's that part of the F. That's actually a little too high. Maybe bump it down until it's a bit more level. That's pretty good. They probably should be a little narrower than the mast. Let's make them slightly narrower. That's another thing. The masts are always fairly heavy. The cross pieces here, whatever they're called, there's probably a technical term for them, might be slightly smaller. So there's that piece. Let's duplicate again and bring that down. And following that same bit of advice, that may look a little too heavy at that width, so don't be afraid to actually make it even thinner yet. Lengthwise, I can draw it in. I don't know why I moved the whole thing. I didn't want it to, because I didn't grab the node there. Draw that out. There's a nice F. Let's go to the Resequence tab. Don't need that tab. Let us put our F together. I'm going to move the mast down. I would prefer to stitch like that. Let's see. Shift key, select them all. Let's see what the software gives me when I branch it. It worked. That's fine. And you would create the T in a similar fashion. Now, let's get rid of those lines. I think that possibly, even at that great distance, the S and the O look a little too big. They're just a little bit too much taller. Let's shorten them up a bit more. That's the wrong direction. Take that down a bump. Let's not make it too much taller. Let's try them at that height. Okay, so the height of that is 0.362. If I choose my O, that's 0.369. Doesn't seem like a whole lot, does it? Change that to a 2. That's not, okay, I'm going to go back. One thing I didn't do there, all I wanted to do was change the height, not the width. I would unlock the percentage over here, the aspect ratio. Now I will just change the height to, that made it a little shorter. I'll relock it. I will get rid of my reference lines. That's getting a bit better. But they may be still slightly too small, but, or too large, excuse me, but that's how I would go about creating those letters. Don't be afraid to make them out of pieces. You can't always make them out of one line. I've learned that lesson. There's a reason why they're made in separate pieces. They actually stitch better that way. So that's how I would work out doing that lettering if I created it on my own.